Greetings from the Regional English Language Office, and welcome to this installment of Relo Brazil celebrating English Teaching Forum Journal's 60th anniversary. My name is Maria Snarsky. I'm the director of the Regional English Language Office at the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia. I'm here today with my colleague Ilmara de Moraes, who is a deputy director of the office and who has been with the Relo office for over 14 years. Ilmara, would you like to say a few words to open this session?
Okay, so thank you, Maria, and welcome everybody to this special series of conversations for 2022 to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the English Teaching Forum Journal. Forum, for short, started back in 1962 and is a quarterly publication written for teachers and by teachers. If you are unfamiliar with Forum, it's available online as well as for free and fully downloadable at americanenglish.state.gov. Go there and check. It's a wonderful publication. Well, today we are pleased to continue this series now with Leni Puppin, who authored an article for English Teaching Forum back in 2007. Before we get into details about this article specifically, let me introduce you to Leni, our guest, by giving you some information about her background. So, Leni Pupin holds a master's in education from the University of Chichester, UK, and she has worked since 1995 as an English teacher and teacher trainer at Programa de Cursos de Línguas at the Federal University of Espírito Santo, also known as UFES. Leni has been in charge of teacher training and development internship program for young student teachers from the Letras major at UFES. On occasions, she works as a guest professor of English in college's TEFL specialization programs. Leni was born in Astorga, Paraná, and has lived in Vila Velha, Espírito Santo, Brazil, since childhood. Leni did have the opportunity to live in Boston, Massachusetts from 1989 to 1995. Leni is passionate about traveling, photography, and arts and crafts in general. Ceramics has been her greatest passion. Currently, Leni spends more time in the countryside, where she has been working ever since Programa Cursos went virtual 2 years ago. One interesting fun fact related to Forum Journal is that Leni used to try solving crosswords and puzzles at the back of the magazine when she was 12 and a student of English in one of the binational centers we have in Espírito Santo, the one in Vitória. Okay, so that is one feature of Forum that has stayed throughout the years. You know, these crossword puzzles are famous. Puzzles on the back page of the magazine. Okay, so back to you, Maria.
All right, thanks, Yomara. So I just want to point out on the screen, is the article, at least the first page that Leni authored for Forum, and the cover that goes along with it from the issue in 2007. And the article is entitled "A Paradigm Shift: From Paper and Pencil Tests to Performance-Based Assessment." And we were noting before this interview started just how we think it's quite relevant still today. So we'll get into some details with Leni about this article and her writing of it and so on. So let me just stop sharing. And all right, so Leni, again, welcome to this conversations with the Relo Brazil office on your article for English Teaching Forum. I'd like to know if you could tell us what sparked your interest in this subject of performance based assessment back in 2007.
Um, Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to take part in the 60th year anniversary of Forum. Um, and I have just to comment on the puzzles in the back of the magazine. When I was 12, it was a dream that I had was to understand and solve the puzzle. So I used to think like when I grow up, when I get better in English, I will be able to solve these puzzles. In the meantime, I used to enjoy the cover and the puzzles and the magazine itself. The little I could understand as a young teacher, as a young student, I'm sorry. Um, what sparked me, actually, the system was brought to us by the consultant, the external consultant that the Language Center contracted at the time, right? We were a group of teachers. I wasn't in the coordination team at the time. I was part of the teaching staff. And we used to have these informal conversation in the staff room about how dissatisfied we were with the testing system that we had at the time, right? Um, we knew that there was something that was not right. Like we were encouraged to use the communicative approach, but at the same time, we tested our students with traditional grammar-based items, and we felt that the test items were disconnected with the way we taught, with the content that we taught. So then we luckily we could speak up. Right, we talked to the administrator of the language center and to the coordinators at the time about our dissatisfaction, about the issues that we could not understand, like that we we didn't understand much at the time about assessment in general, but we knew that there was something that did not go together, that it was not aligned, it was not matched. So luckily, we talked to the coordinators, and then it was pretty much like a bottom-up decision. Teachers and coordinators, we decided that we should have a consultant, a specialist in assessment, and luckily she introduced to us uh, the theory and the possibilities of having a performance-based strategy, right? That we could work with. So that's how I came across the performance-based assessment system.
Great. And yeah, no, that's always interesting how these ideas generate, how they come about. And I know what the article is about, but would you mind giving a brief summary of what you've included in the article just for the people who are watching?
Yeah, sure. The article describes the stages that we went through uh, in order to change what we had at the time, right? So we went through 3 stages in a period of 2 years. And the consultant helped us throughout, right? We had these meetings during these 3 stages. They took place in July of 2000, and then in January of 2001, and then later in July of 2001 as well. So the article first talks about our dissatisfaction with the system that we had at the time. The article also gives like an overview of the performance-based strategy itself and how it helped us uh, find this alignment between the way we were teaching, what we were teaching, with the way we wanted to test and with how we wanted to test. So the article also presents some of the tools that we developed during these 3 stages. It also describes what we did in each stage. Um, the article also describes the reasons why we wanted to change and how we and what happened afterwards, right after the system was implemented. So the article is a way of sharing with the forum readers the experience that we went through, like the positive outcome that came out of this transition period, and especially uh, because it was, as I said, like a bottom-up change, right? We wanted the change, and it was like a collaborative work. So that's pretty much what the article is about, sharing our experience and what each stage covered, and like a brief summary of the results.
Great. Yeah, you listed several benefits of assessment, for performance based. And you said it would make the procedures clear for everyone. Teachers would use fewer grammar driven activities. There'd be more real world communicative tasks. The assessment strongly corresponds to the subject. To me, it certainly sounds like the list is convincing, to use performance based assessment. And yet, some institutions in many locations, in and outside of Brazil, continue to use paper based or paper and pencil based tests. What would you suggest to those who may be interested in changing to performance based assessment, but they're hesitant to do so? Do you have any ideas?
Um, well, I think that the teaching staff, along with coordinators, should be happy with the testing system that they have at their institution, right? Um, and otherwise, if there is like a will to change, I think there should be some action into changing. I couldn't really speak for other institutions myself, but I understand that the like the testing system should reflect closely the instructional system, right? They should be aligned, and teachers and coordinators should look into that carefully, and ask this question, like how closely do your tests does your testing system reflect your instructional process, right? And like I said, we were very unhappy at the time because test items were disconnected. The communicative approach itself, right, with its social interactive features, and the communication uh, um, characteristics, and authenticity, features like authenticity especially, um, they must be somehow connected to the tests. If not, you know, the teaching process will always be a mismatch. And so I think that the performance-based assessment strategy, besides having all these authentic and real-world tasks, it is also it involves transparency, right? Our students are clear about their performance, and it's not simply getting a from 1 to 10 grade and not knowing exactly why they're getting a 5 or they're getting a 10, or if they're happy with a 10 or if they're unhappy with a 5. And also passing the responsibility of the results from the test on to the teacher, which is like, there is this maxim of the teacher gave me a 5, right? So the performance-based strategies, they deal with this sharing responsibility and not so much having the teacher as the responsible agent for getting a 10 or for getting a 5 or for pass or failure. So there are so many characteristics in the performance strategies that has helped us understand that testing should be transparent, should be fair, should be shared. Um, so I really, I, I'm really sorry that other institutions have not really adopted the system. At the time, it was a bit costly, I would say, for us to hire an external consultant, but it was worth it, you know. But I would say that you can easily have access to the literature available on performance-based strategies. And what we did, we made adjustments, we made adaptations on the on performance-based strategies, like for regular high schools, to our teaching context, to the language center, right, to the EFL context. So I would say that it's really up to the team to be willing to change and to work collaboratively and to carry on research and to look up for like I said, like the available literature, and it's all there. I've I've been researching updated information on assessment strategies, and I can tell you that we are pretty much aligned with, the changes and the theory and the practices. And I don't know, I wish more institutions would go for it like we did. We've been pretty happy. It's been 22 years, actually. Can you believe that? Ever since we started implementing the changes, it's been 22 years. It's a happy marriage. We're very happy.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, no, everything you're saying sounds like it's so current, right? But you wrote this
Yeah.
12 years ago. You started this, you say 22 years ago. My next question, I don't know if you have anything to add, but my thing is, the question is, if you were to update this article and some of the ideas, is there anything you would change? You've mentioned so
Um,
many things that are still relevant, very timeless article.
yeah. As you said, everything sounds so relevant as I reread every time I reread the article, because as teacher trainers, right, we have newcomers coming in every semester, new groups of letras major students to be trained as teachers, right? And before we start the training session on assessment, we give them the article for them to read. We've been doing that ever since. 2007 when the article was published. So you can imagine, I'm very proud to do that, even though I don't know who the author is. I let them find out who the author is. So they go through the article, right? So it is still very updated and very relevant. If I were to make changes to the article, I would probably add the adjustments and the changes that we've been making throughout for different reasons. The frequency that we have the testing moments. You know, it used to be twice per semester, then we changed to 3 times. Now we're back to 2 times for different reasons. Obviously, the instruments themselves, right? The subjects of the instruments of the tests. We also get a lot of feedback from teachers who are very much involved in the assessment system, right? Because that's what we wish for. We wish that they get involved in the instructional process and in the assessment process as well, right? So by reading the article, the teacher trainees, uh, they can understand assessment in general, and they can narrow it down to our context. And so we add, right? A few changes that we've been making these 20 years, but the foundation, the basis of the article is pretty much the same, right? It is pretty much the same. I wouldn't change the ideas as much as I would change things here and there, but these things are pretty much related to the time, right? To the wish of, being on time with things, being in like updated really with changes in general. But the foundation of the article, the basis is pretty much the same.
Yeah, my next question, I think you may have already answered it, but perhaps you have something to add. Uh, because sometimes these articles are pretty far removed from what we do in our current state of, professional career. But this sounds like a very seminal article for you that you're having,
Yeah.
your students are reading it, and then they're kind of building from there. My question is, how is the article, how is this topic that you wrote in the article impacted your career, or how does it reflect on what you do today? I think you've addressed some of it, but please, if you have other things, other thoughts, please do share.
Well, thanks to the visibility of the Forum Journal, right? I was received 2 calls actually from abroad, maybe 10, 15 years ago, to talk about the system, to talk about the article, to talk about the transition, right? And also thanks to the visibility of the Forum magazine, we were able to present the the article itself and the transition period and the assessment project in different TESOL conventions, right? Locally in the south of Brazil once, the whole coordination team and teachers went down to Santa Catarina to present. And we were proud to say that we were in the Faro magazine because of the implementation of the process. And then I went by myself to the Southern Cone, TESOL Southern Cone in Paraná, Curitiba, And we so that somehow impacted my career. Like, we are very we are enthusiasts about the changes that we've made, and the article came as a plus. The article really gave us this confidence that we were on the right track, right? That we we were really it was, as I said, it was like a team decision. So it did impact my career positively. I wish I would pursue the assessment career, in a doctorship program and everything, but we have a handful with teacher trainees, with novice teachers to train, and but anyway,
Yeah, no, it sounds like it has had an impact on your career, and it's been a feature in what you do today. I'd like to hand it over to Elmara to continue the questioning, on what you're doing, like since then, and taking it kind of beyond. Over to you, Elmara.
Okay, Maria. So it's really interesting, Lily. I'm so excited, and interested in listening to what you're sharing with us. And I see that performance-based assessment has been with you, as a teacher trainer, as you work with your students, with novice teachers, and I think you also work with more experienced teachers in the field.
yeah,
And it's nice to see this impact, that the reverberations, let's put it that way, of the article that you published in the journal has, let's say, brought to your let's say perspectives in relation to assessment. So would you have other additional resources maybe that you would recommend to those who want to read more about assessment, who want to read more about the topic? Because I see it's a never ending thing, and
it
assessment
is.
is always, I always bring that up, whenever we have some kind of training or something related, that assessment is always an issue, for us to discuss and comment on. So would you have things, additional resources to share or recommend?
Um, you mean as bibliography, as authors, or in general?
I think you can give us a general perspective on that, or maybe some authors that you would recommend. Oh, this author is interesting, so you should look for articles or references that this person has published. Something that comes to you in terms of recommendations, in terms of the
Okay,
performance-based assessment. Yeah.
right. Kathleen Bailey has been one of our main sources, right? Um, at the time when we first got together to decide on the changes, what we did was to consult some of the authors brought by the external consultant herself, right? Such as Popham, Bailey. Um, the consultant herself had a published book on assessment, um, but because it's such a wide field, right? Uh, their performance-based assessment is not as wide as assessment in general, right? But I don't know, maybe Bailey, Kathleen Bailey is our main reference, and Magdala Raup herself, she was the consultant, and she had published books on the subject in Portuguese and in English. She lived in the US for a long time. Um, like I said, what we did was we adapted assessment theories in general, right, to performance-based assessment, the few authors that we had available at the time. But my recommendation as a teacher and as a teacher trainer is like never stop looking into references, right? Never stop researching. Uh, you are student number one in class, right? So you think you know English until you enter a classroom and you find out that you will learn much further when you become a teacher, because that's when you learn that you were student number one. So um, but Helmara, not specifically like one author or one reference that we really consult. What we do have, though, that we refer to on a regular basis is that at the time of the implementation stages, we prepared a guide, right? This was an open document, like an open book. It wasn't really an ended manual, but as the consultant used to put to us, it was an open guide. So we always refer to this guide, and there we find the authors that we referred to at the time. We also go back to the theories that based on we based our decisions on, and so once in a while we go back to our own guide where all the references are, because the whole process was documented, right? The changes were documented, and that's one of the positive things. That's one of the benefits that we had available to us. It's all there. It's documented. It's registered. We never took a step ahead without going back to what we had done before, because we knew that we need to record things, to put things in different documents, but that that but everything was related to the project itself. So my recommendation also would be record everything you do, right? Prepare a plan, have it all written.
Yeah, always having some guidance, always having, and taking a look at your article. There are references there too, so teachers can explore, and it's always a learning process, as we always mention. But I would like to go a little broader now, in terms of your experience, your professional life. Okay, so let's turn this conversation a little bit into that direction. And you're starting this profession. I think that our listeners are curious to know more. Okay, so you have been in the English teaching profession for over 25 years, and you've been a teacher and a teacher trainer at the Federal University of Espírito Santo. So you've been in charge of the teacher training and development internship program for let's say novice teachers, student teachers from the letras department, and and here in Brasilia, on one occasion, you are a guest speaker, a guest
Right,
professor, let's put it that way,
right.
of English in colleges. So can you tell us what brought you to the English teaching profession? initially? Why did you decide to become an English teacher?
That's the question that we ask the the candidates to the internship program. Why did you decide to become a teacher? Why did you decide to apply to the language program? And then the answers, they're pretty similar. Well, it's the passion for the English language, right? I remember ever since I was 8, I I didn't study English at the time, but I had cousins who had books in English, so I would, steal the books and try to match pictures and names. And then when I turned 10, well, at the time it was pretty hard for my family to pay for language lessons, right, outside school. So I earned this scholarship, and I was 10. I don't know, it was something new in town. So I earned this scholarship. So it was an early passion for English, and also I used to play teacher, right? Had invisible students. Right now, my nieces, my grandnieces are doing that now. So I thought of myself when I was their age. So I guess it all begins with the passion for English, and then the passion for teaching, for sharing knowledge, for learning, the passion for learning as well. So I majored in letras, English myself from UFIS, where I teach at the moment. Uh, and then I worked as a translator for some time. Then I moved to the States. I lived there for 5 years. So when I came back to Brazil, that I felt more confident about the language, then I thought that I was finally ready to start teaching. And that's when the language center, the project had just started back in 95. They had just started the Language Center project in 94, I think. So I had former teachers, former professors in charge of the project. So I started teaching there. Before I joined the coordination team, I worked only as a teacher for 6 years. That's when I got involved in the whole transition movement, right? I probably headed, I probably leaded the teachers and drove them into the changes. I don't remember. It was actually a group desire. So it's been a passion ever since. And every time, like I said, every time I pose these questions to the candidates, why did you decide to become a teacher? I know that this passionate, feeling always comes about, and just we've been getting answers from these candidates lately that they are self-taught. They are proficient in English, and they say, oh no, I never went to a language school. I learned by myself. So it's been a surprise. It's been a positive surprise to hear that, the passion drove them into learning by themselves, because, there are, resources available, technology is available.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's
so
it's yeah, it's so interesting to talk about passion, because sometimes people start in the English teaching field for different reasons, but at
yeah,
some point they get so involved that they continue. They say, okay, that's exactly what I want for my life. I want to continue in the English teaching field. But considering all the experience you have, Lenny, with teacher training, as a student yourself, the places where you lived, what pieces of advice or what advice or tips would you give to someone that is thinking about becoming an English teacher? I mean, starting on this career.
Um, Perhaps like if never stop studying. If you have this passion, because the passion is besides um, being passionate about the language itself, you must be passionate about learning.